Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Inside the Orange podcast. The podcast all about understanding the people around us. Now I'm delighted to say that I'm wearing this fantastic jumper from Born Anxious for the Strong Dads Club, promoting autism awareness. Now in today's episode, I'm interviewing the absolutely inspirational marathon runner, Sally Brider. And we're here to tell her story today, which is absolutely amazing. So, let's get into the episode. So my guest today on the podcast is the amazingly inspiring Sally Brider. She's an amazing runner she's a friend. She came to the show via a friend, via Godwin, friend of the show, Godwin D. Batista. And he said, come and have a look at Sally's work. And I looked at it on Instagram and I thought, wow, this is amazing. She's done a couple of podcasts with Marathon Talk, and she's done an Instagram interview with Fighting the Dad Bod, who, when I explained that I was interviewing her today, described her as an absolute star. So, Sally, welcome to the Inside the Orange podcast. It's fantastic for you to be here today. How's your day been so far?
Rich, thanks for having me. Yes, good day. Admin of Life Day, I think they call it, don't they, Mondays? So that's quite the norm for me too on a Monday, and first day of half term as well.
Absolutely, yeah, important day. So, for the benefit of my listeners, so tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about Sally Brider.
Okay, Sally Brider. Well, I guess the first thing to say is I'm an older runner, and when I first started Instagram on my running journey, I was very much trying to highlight to older women or postmenopausal women about the fact that we still have the ability to achieve big things, dream big goals, etc. I had a dreadful, sorry Rich, this is a man, dreadful menopause, 7 years, which sent me to the darkest places I've ever been in my life. And as I commonly say, running basically saved me from that, and they will go on to talk about this sort of a mental fitness perspective. Started off as a bucket list thing, really, to do major or formal events, and then realised how much I loved it. And yeah, haven't been doing it for that long. Started properly in about 2016. I've now run 3 world marathon majors and looking to do all 6. And became an Asics Front Runner last year, which was the absolute icing on the cake. And just love running, really.
Probably the most important bit. You've got to love what you're doing, haven't you? 100%. Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, because on Instagram, obviously, you are always posting how much you're running and everything. Are you competitive? Are you a competitive runner?
That's a really good question. I was thinking about the word competitiveness in general, and thinking that, and I did actually read up about the word competitive, and from what I've seen, it does sort of highlight that perhaps competitiveness changes with age. So as you get older, the general consensus seems to be that perhaps as our confidence in ourselves decreases, that our competitiveness gets less. And I would say that was the same for me when I was younger. I was quite competitive, very competitive at school and with my studies, and I was a dancer as well, old-time dancing. As I've got older and post-menopausal, my confidence levels did change, so therefore I would say competitively, absolutely, I didn't have any. As I've got into running more, I would say that my competitiveness has increased, but that is with myself, not with other people. I'm only really thinking about how I can improve on myself or push myself, rather than trying to beat other people, because at this time of my life, beating other people is not massively high on the priority list. Although I have to say, when I lived in Spain, we moved back in January last year, in a few of the local events, I did get a podium finish, which sort of blew me away, and I guess as a result of that, it did sort of reignite the competitiveness in me, and thinking, could I get on the podium for the over 55 women, today? So I would say it was a healthily, in perspective, competitiveness, but generally it's just with myself. I'll give you an example. I've got 3 marathons hopefully this year, within 3 weeks of each other, and I have got my plan A, plan B and plan C times, but that's just for me. It's just in competition with me, and I don't really feel the need to make myself accountable to anybody else. It's just that it's just there for me and to tell me and my husband, really, so that's as far as it goes, if that answers the question.
No, it does, brilliant. And I just want to raise something on that it's a really interesting point on life that I really want to try and get across to people is you are only ever competing with yourself, aren't you? 100%. You can compete with, I know, in professional racing and things, there is competition with others, and the businesses are always in competition with others, but to do the best in your own life, you are only competing with you, aren't you? You're not competing with anyone else to do the best in your life. So it's a really, really good answer to the question, to be fair.
I think it's keeping a healthy perspective on competitiveness. If it gives you the edge on the day, I think that's brilliant. But, just don't beat yourself up and consider yourself to be a failure if you didn't reach the time that you wanted on a particular day. That good old saying that a lot of people use, which I love, which is finish lines, not finish times. The fact that you've run over the line, whether it's a 5k, a 10k, a marathon, the fact that you've actually run over the line, and there's lots of people that haven't, for whatever reason, managed to even get to the start line.
100%, really important. So you spoke briefly in your opening thing to tell my listeners. You spoke about something called mental fitness. So what does that mean to you? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, firstly, I should say that I pinched the term mental fitness from Prince William because I heard him speak on I think it was a TV show that he did with footballers, and they were talking about mental health as it was. And I just thought, well, that's a really nice term to use, because mental health, whether we like it or not, does still have some kind of stigma, I think, attached to it. And there's so many people doing some really great work to try and, get away from that. Mental health matters. I'm doing Miles for Mind this month for mental health matters. But we talk a lot about physical fitness, and I think therefore mental fitness fits quite nicely in for that. Physical fitness, we're all talking about, keeping ourselves active and, healthy diet, nutrition, enough sleep, that kind of thing. But when it comes to mental fitness, for me, it's all about my emotional well-being. And under that, I look at things like my resilience, which when I was menopausal suffered really, really badly. Just basically my self-esteem. And I just mean that in a very sort of normal level, that, not, oh, how wonderful do I look today? More of, can I even get myself out the front door? How you feel about yourself. And just generally, when I run, I find that the running just keeps my mental fitness on track. It keeps my brain working, and I know a lot of people might say, well, I read for that kind of thing, or I do crosswords, I do puzzles, whatever. Yes, I think they all play a great part, but for me, my brain and my emotional well-being keep really in check from running. So that's how I keep my mental health fit, is by running.
Yeah. And a really interesting point, and again, I'm approaching this delicately as a man, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you are very good and very open about talking about the menopause. And I mean, it was a trigger for your life. It was something that made you have a difference in your life. So how important is it to embrace that word as well? And again, I ask very carefully as a man who doesn't really understand it, but this is where you can teach me about the word.
Well, I think it's one of those words that still has a little bit of taboo. And if you start, you can see people's eyes sort of roll if you start talking about it. It's like, oh no, don't talk about that kind of thing. I mean, for me, and I have written a number of blogs about this, is in my 40s, I had an amazing career. We lived in Asia. We just adopted a little girl after being caught up in the tsunami in Phuket. Life was brilliant. And then I started to notice that it was the mental side, the emotional side that started first. Really, really bad anxiety, which I've never had in my whole life. And it really took me by surprise. I guess I was thinking, oh no, you read these books, it happens to old women, and and I didn't consider myself to be an old woman. Having lost my mum when I was a teenager, as well. I didn't actually have anyone to talk to. My husband's mum had died as well, so there was no older people in the family to talk to about it. So I would say it basically sort of hit me like a steam train. Didn't know what it was to start off with. Then it got worse and worse. I ended up having a hysterectomy, which then, as many women, if they listen, might know, that then can send you into basically surgical menopause, and you just go off the cliff hormonally. So I went from being happy, confident, quite an extrovert in my love of life, to somebody that didn't even want to get out of bed. I mean, it was that bad, thinking very bad thoughts all the time. And I think mainly I was asked recently about if I described what was the one sort of thing that I found was the most difficult. I would say it was the constant sadness. I just felt very sad all the time, just no happiness left at all. It was just a very bad time. And then I think when you have an acceptance that that's what it is, you know that you're not actually going round the twist. And I was very lucky. My husband was amazingly supportive, and we did lots of research together. And I ended up going down the natural route. I couldn't take traditional HRT because my mum died of breast cancer. So I went down the bioidentical route and take bioidentical progesterone, which is the happy hormone. And just a little bit of a dab of cream every morning keeps me the happy Sally rather than the grumpy mummy, as Marley, my daughter, sometimes remembers.
And points out, yeah, kids are great, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so back to your running. So what is your advice for people who might be looking at getting fit, and how and more importantly, how do people maintain it? So for someone that's going out and doing it, how do they do it, but how do they maintain it?
Really good question, because it's the hardest thing is getting started, isn't it, on these things, and especially if you're looking on Instagram at people who are doing it well, in however they consider that term to be. But I think it's almost like the term that we say for girls: put your big girl pants on and just get out there and give it a go. There's so much support available now. There's things like Couch to 5K. I only found out actually last week that the NHS are doing some free apps now, which I think is Couch to 5K and then Life After Couch to 5K. So you've got online support there from people. Some of the running apps like Runkeeper and Strava have their own training plans now as well. Local running groups. I think a lot of people might like to do it on their own when they start. And I personally do actually love running on my own. But I think it's do some research, find some routes where you can go, and it literally is baby steps to start off with. I wouldn't suggest going to run 5K on your first go, as you know, Rick, with the training that you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you do run for 20 seconds, walk for 20 seconds, and then get up to maybe running for a minute, walking for a minute. And it surprised me how quick you will start to think, actually, I don't need to have that minute's rest now. I can maybe run for a minute, walk for 30 seconds. And it does, personally, I think it comes quite quickly if you stick with it. If you can try and do it sort of 2, 3, 4 times a week, rather than just making it once a week. It's amazing how our fitness, probably from our younger days, does come back. Our brain does remember that we do know how to run. And yeah, it can happen quite quickly, but it depends what people's goals are, because somebody might, to get to Couch to 5K is such an amazing achievement that might be where somebody wants to stay at 5K, because when Park Run comes back, of course, Park Run is 5K or 3.1 miles, and that might be the distance that some people want to stick with. But then, of course, you can go on to 10Ks, halves, and then full marathons.
No, that's brilliant. So I've asked about trying to get someone out to do it for day one. So do you remember the first time that you laced up your trainers and went out, and how did that feel? And do you still have a similar feeling when you go out running?
I can remember when it was, yeah, and it was absolutely horrid.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I did many years ago, used to run 5K quite regularly on a treadmill at a gym. but I hadn't done any sort of actual like go outside running for many years. So my first run outside, I can tell you exactly, it was August 2016. We lived in Spain. We had some family staying on holiday with us, and my husband was running. He had a small running group of women. I have to say they were all women. And they said, oh, come on, let's all go. Sal, you come as well. And I was like, I really don't want to go. And I did go. And I did actually run 8K that day, but I hated every minute of it. I didn't hate the running. I was in the midst of menopause. I hated how I looked. I hated how I felt. I was like the biggest I'd been. So I was really like uncomfortable. Didn't have any sort of branded kit. I had like supermarket stuff, which was fine for it, no snob value attached to that. No. So I didn't like how I felt, how I looked. So I did it, and I felt really chuffed with myself, but I absolutely didn't like it at all. I think I probably moaned the whole time in there. But do I feel like that now? No, I mean, it's, everyone knows we have good days, bad days. We have good runs, bad runs. I think when you have a bad run, you just have to accept it, put it to one side and move on. But I certainly have days when I don't want to go, or the mind chat is saying, oh, do we have to? But I know that I always feel much better after I have been. But I don't have the fear about it now compared to that first one, which was just not a very nice experience.
No, that's really important, because again, one of the questions I did have down here is how do you deal with the can't be bothered to run days, and do you get them? And you've just said there you get them. So the people that just think, oh, surely people that do this all the time don't get those days. It's so good to hear you go, yeah, we still get them,
Yeah, you do, and you also get the other one, which is life gets in the way. I mean, today I've had life got in the way. I think for me personally, if I don't go first thing, then I have to accept and be honest with myself that it's highly likely it's not going to happen. I think that's the best way for my day to start, is run and then do everything else. Unfortunately today I'm in my kit, and then life stuff got in the way. Stuff at home happens, or somebody rings at the doorbell, whatever, and then for whatever reason it just didn't happen. And then it got to about 3:00, and I said to my husband, I really need to go. And he said, this is such an important piece of advice which was given to me, which I will pass on. He said to me, how far did you run yesterday? And I said, I ran 11K yesterday. I did a double run yesterday, 5 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. He said, you need to practice what you preach, which is rest today. So, and I think that is, don't beat yourself up, because especially as you get older, that rest and recovery is sometimes more important than the actual training itself. I mean, I could have gone, I would have gone. I'm on a 5K challenge for February that I've set myself, 5K pretty much every day, or 5 out of the 7 days. But I think sometimes you do have to accept that, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow any worse a person because I didn't run today. And actually the rest, especially at my age, is quite important too.
Again, really well said. And I just want to highlight something. So we spoke before, and we're both big fans of Simon Sinek, who talks about the addiction of dopamine, I believe it is. He talks about, and running is addictive, isn't it? And you do start thinking to yourself, I've got to go again tomorrow. But again, you've got to be careful to have it as something that's benefiting you and not as much of an addiction. Is that fair to say?
Definitely. And I mean, I have had periods of time in my life when I have been addicted to exercise, and you are beating yourself up, you've not been, and you just need that fix as well. And I've certainly been there. For me personally now, running later on in the day, so anything sort of past sort of 3, 4, 5 o'clock, I find could negatively affect my sleep, because I've become really quite active, and then I find it quite hard to switch off. So it's knowing, I think everyone will find their own time that I know lots of people that work out in the evening and it works for them. Personally, it's not great for me. I like the morning running, but yeah, it's just don't beat yourself up about it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
No, absolutely hands down to you there. So I want to talk about your Instagram post. So people can find you at Sally Brider. That's right, isn't it, on Instagram? I'll put a link and everything into the description show notes, because honestly, I cannot vouch enough how inspirational this Sally is. It's just amazing to see on Instagram. She's always kind of helped me with stuff. She's always liked stuff I've done. If it's like, I've just gone and done a couch 5K, yeah, it's there. And she is such an amazing person to have around. I hope you don't mind me saying that as I'm sat here talking to you. But you have... You've got a lot of medals. You've posted things in the past, medals. I just want to ask just a cheeky question. So how many medals have you got? How many runs have there been on your social media that we can talk about?
I've got about 50 to, I think I've got about 50 to 60 medals. I did have a little look after we chatted last time.
Yeah.
From big medals, I've got a London Marathon proper race and a New York Marathon proper race, and then the London Virtual. I've got probably about 20-something half marathon medals, which range from amazing ones like the Great North Run and the Big Half and London Landmarks, to some not so well known ones, some lovely rural half marathons that I've done here and in Spain, which are more like sort of trail straight road. But then I've also got quite a few medals from challenges that I've set myself. So some of the virtual companies who do like monthly challenges. When I lived in Spain, there wasn't as much on offer as if I was living in London and I could pick, from the UK calendar. So I used to set myself on a fairly regular basis, just from a motivational perspective, like maybe a mileage for the month that I wanted to do, or something that they brought out which was linked to a charity that I was quite interested in. So they're not all race medals. But I could probably, they do mean a lot. And I know people joke, my husband always says, well, you're just interested in the bling. I do love the medals, because I think they all tell their own story, which is why I like them. But we do have a joke that, no medal, no race. He's more interested in the experience and being out on the trails, but I do love a good medal. As I said, it's just they do tell a nice story, and most people I know, even people that have far more than me, can remember the race that went with each medal. So they're all quite special in their own way.
Okay, brilliant. And as I said, people can keep up with you on Instagram at Sally Brider, but you're also is it a front runner for Asics as well? Do you want to talk a little bit about that, if that's all right?
Yes, I'd love to. So Asics, the Japanese global sporting brand, have their own running community, which is the team of front runners, which I think last count was the global running community, I think, went across about 700 people, about 35 countries, I think. We've got about 45 part of the UK team. And I was incredibly fortunate to be selected to join the team last January. The team we have is just amazing, and I say that in respect of its diversity. You can see, because I'm not in my 20s, they're not all 20 super fast, super slim, super fit, super influencer people. We range from 20s to our oldest member is going to be 60 in the next few months. We've got an Olympian on the team. We have a family on the team whose son is in a wheelchair, and they run a proper mobility chair for marathons. All shapes and sizes, all ages, all abilities. But I think it's a really great reflection of the diversity of people and running, and the fact that you don't have to be fit into a certain category or look a certain way to be able to be a runner. So that community has been amazing. Although having joined in the pandemic, we've not been able to all get together, which is quite sad, because normally there'd be a couple of meetups during the year. But the whole idea of the front runners is really just to inspire movement. It's not about us. It's about hopefully us trying to motivate people to get their trainers on, or whatever kind of sport they're doing. But just inspire people to move. And the whole ethos around Asics is sound mind in sound body, so it fits very well with my whole belief around the sound mind, sound body, mental fitness, physical fitness. Great brand, love it. People are just absolutely amazing. It's been I have to pinch myself about that one. Yeah.
No.
Very lucky.
And as I said, it's amazing because, as I say, I always post some bits on Instagram. Recently the Inside the Orange for February was doing Fitness February. There's videos I've been doing, and every single one I've kind of been putting towards you. So it is good. There is. It's lovely to see the diversity of running, from everyone being an athlete, everyone being, the simple message in one of my videos was, you don't have to go, I can run a kilometre in 30 seconds. Do you know what I mean? You don't know. It's all about that diverse bit. Everyone's going to do it differently, and that's what makes that community, and the community that I've found with the running community that I've even found on Instagram with you guys, has just been so amazing. And again, from me and the people that may have seen my videos and been inspired, it's down to you guys as well, because if I didn't have you guys around giving me that motivation, giving me that inspiration, I wouldn't be doing it. So from me, thank you very much.
And I think it's really important that the message is out there that you're never too old to start running. You don't have to fit a certain profile. Anybody can do it. And the amazing thing about running is it is free. I know you have to buy your kit, but you don't have to pay to go to a gym. I mean, going back to the comment we had around mental fitness, Rich. I mean, I personally get no enjoyment from running on the treadmill. I have done before. Since we moved back to the UK, I haven't run on a treadmill at all, and that wouldn't tick the boxes for that whole the endorphins for me. Really, it's all about being outside, taking it all in. I never run with music, never have.
Wow.
I love just being out there, listening, watching. When you're running in events, you can talk to other people as well. And I think since lockdown as well, we've all taken a big step back, and we do really appreciate what's around us much more than we ever did before.
100%.
So yeah, being outside, being out on the trails is my favourite, when they're not even bothered about what time you're running, because there's no comparison, but just being outside and hopefully just motivating people to, have a go, really.
Oh, brilliant. So what is your message to the people who listen to you, but think, I couldn't do it. I hear it, but I couldn't do it. What's your message to those people?
Well, firstly, I'd say is you can. You absolutely can. You're not going to... There's a common phrase that you'll never regret a run, and I think that is so true. I don't even know who came up with the phrase. I know a lot of people that use it. It's like everything else. Getting started is the hardest part. Whatever we decide to do, when it's something new or a challenge, it's always getting started. People will say getting your trainers on is the hardest part. Getting your kit on is the hardest part. And I think if you can get over that, you can do it, and have an idea about what your motivation is. If it is something longer term, like running a marathon, again, I would say to people, running a marathon is not easy. If it is, everyone would have done it. So you've got some sort of competition for yourself there if you want it. If you don't, if you want to be a recreational runner, brilliant. As I say, I would definitely check out Parkrun for all of that when it starts again. But I would just say you can. I ran my first marathon when I was 53, and if you'd have told me in the depths of menopausal misery, when I was having incredibly dark thoughts and thought about doing dreadful things, I'd be sitting here now talking to you about running, with a New York Marathon medal and a London Marathon medal, and hopefully, if all goes well, running Berlin, London and Chicago within 3 weeks of each other when I will be 58, I would never have believed you in a million years. So, and that's not about self-gratification for me, that's saying to people, you really can do it. Just because we're older, it doesn't mean we have to stop dreaming, about amazing things. I hope that sounds it up.
Nah, 100%. And as I say, that is the thing. As I say, you're not saying there, oh yeah, go and sign up for 3 marathons next month, but it's a bit about once you're on that journey, anything's possible, isn't it? Once you do that first run, anything is possible.
And it is tough. I mean, I should say, just to add a caveat to that, those 3 marathons in 3 weeks is not my choice. That's because of things being delayed, etc. And they're now bunched up. Any runners who listen will know that September and October in particular will become an incredibly busy month because everything has been sort of lumped into 1 month. So that was never my intention to do that. And whenever you stand on a start line for a half or for a full marathon, I mean, it's going to hurt. I'm not a super speedy runner, and it does, physically, it can be quite hard. So there was something that went around last week about, use the emojis that describe how you feel the night before a run, when you're on the start line, when you finish on your way home, all mixture of people's emotions. Normally the night before is you can't sleep. Or you're being sick, on the start line is you need to use the loo because you're really nervous, and this is from people I've run with recently who at Kew Gardens, incredibly gifted runner, but needed to go to the loo, and you think, why are you nervous? You're an amazing runner. So I think it does generate all of those mixed emotions, but I don't think anyone ever stands on the start line of a marathon thinking this is going to be easy, because it's not. And then you can yourself on the way and then, why am I doing this? But it's somebody asked me how I sort of deal with that in training, and it's the first time I'd actually ever put it down in writing, which was I did for a blog for Asics, and it made me think about my motivation. And I would say on the darkest days, or the hardest training when you're out there on your own for like 3.5 hours, is I always visualise crossing the finish line and having that medal put round my neck, because I said I love a bit of bling, and some of the medals are amazing. So for things like New York, that was what really kept me going, was picturing running through Central Park, and I went and checked it out on the day before, so I knew what it looked like. So when I came to 35k onwards, you know what it's going to look like, and you know how much you want to run over that finish line for real and get the medal. So that for me is how I keep my motivation going if I'm sort of having any self-doubt.
That's brilliant. So a bit of a lighter thing now. So tell me something that might surprise my listeners or your followers who are out there. So tell me something that's just that they're going to go, I never knew that, or I wouldn't have ever thought that of Sally. Go on, what we got?
Oh, goodness. We've talked about this before, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
I mean, one of them, I've got a gorgeous 15-year-old adoptive daughter. People might know that. She's Indonesian, and we adopted her when she was 7 weeks. My husband and I were in Phuket when the tsunami hit, which was a life-changing experience for us. So that's one. I've touched on the dancing. So I was an old dancer. So I do have a picture of me and Lane Goodman somewhere around. And the other one I think that we did sort of mention was, so going back to July 2005, it was actually the 5th of July 2005, the British contingent for the London for the Olympic 2012 bid were in Singapore, where I lived at the time. And through my husband's job, we were invited to the home of the British High Commissioner to an event. Didn't really know much about it. Mark came home from work and said, we've been invited to the High Commissioner, something to do with the Olympics, whatever. David Beckham might be there. And it was like, I might go. And we got a taxi, and it was to the British High Commissioner's house, which I'd been to before through my daughter's school. And it ended up being every face and name in British athletics that you could ever really name. So we're just standing there, like two giggling teenagers, thinking, "Can't believe we're here." Bobby Charlton walks up, and Daley Thompson, and Seb Coe doing a talk. Tanni Gray-Thompson, the amazing wheelchair athlete, and my husband was talking to Tanni Gray-Thompson, and suddenly she says, this is David Beckham. So my husband says, oh, hello, Mark Bryder. And then he turns to me and puts his hand out and says, David Beckham. And I went, oh, like Sally Bryder. Feeling like, oh my goodness, that was. And then I met Victoria as well. But I think that was just an amazing experience. I count myself incredibly fortunate to do that. But the most amazing thing, really, and we wouldn't be having this conversation if I hadn't moved back to the UK and where I'm actually living in my house now. So as part of that evening, I spoke to the amazing heptathlete Denise Lewis. Many of you will know,
wow.
Beautiful lady. And my hair was short like it is. My hair's been short for years. And she kept going on about my hair. Like, your hair's just amazing. I wish I had the courage to have my hair cut short. Anyway, didn't think anything more of it. I had that conversation literally with my neighbour about 3 weeks ago. And I said, and Denise Lewis was going on about my hair. Well, Denise Lewis is her best friend. And she was the godmother to Denise Lewis's youngest child.
Oh my word.
So after having met her in Singapore in 2005, she's now probably will be in and out of my neighbour's house once life gets back to normal. So yeah, that whole 6 separation.
Yeah, that absolutely is small. Let's just say, such a small world, isn't it? It can be from those two couldn't be further apart events, but look at that, it's incredible. So tell me. Sorry, I've put my notes a little bit too far away from my face, so that's not really helpful. Professional as a podcaster. So tell me about the running community. Finally, do you find them supportive? And what's the easiest way for a day one runner to find their running community?
Okay, great question. Yes, I find the running community so supportive and very. I mean, other than we talked about before the odd negative people that you will get, few trolls or whatever on Instagram. Generally, I think the running community is incredibly supportive, totally respectful of everybody, what age group or category of runner that you are. The Asics community I found is amazing. The Instagram community, my personal experience is all really, really positive. I found some amazing running friends, in inverted commas, through Instagram, and especially through lockdown, people who are really opening up about issues they may have, their own challenges during lockdown, and I think everyone's come together. What I do like about the running community on Instagram is I find that people really engage with each other, which for me is a really key thing about Instagram. Don't put yourself out there if you're not prepared to engage with people. I've spent time before writing comments on people's posts when I thought I could really add something. Somebody you mentioned, Rich, about your back earlier. I had back surgery when I was in my 20s, and I thought I could add something to, and then you don't even get a response. And you think, well, why did I bother? So I think if you're going to put yourself on Instagram and you like to have a following, it's all about engaging with people and sharing parts of yourself. As people share with you, you share back. So I think that's really important. Talked about Park Run, obviously, when that starts. Going back to Instagram, I think you can follow some great hashtags. I mean, I did check this earlier today. I've just written it down here. So the running hashtag just on its own has 73 million people who follow that. Run on its own has 51 million, Runner 23 million, Asics Front Runner nearly 1 million. So if you follow any of those hashtags, I'm sure people know how you can follow a hashtag rather than a person. You are going to come across people that may be in your community that you might even know. And then I think you can whittle it down even further. I asked one of my Asics Front Runners this morning, how did she engage with her community? And she said, I just put in hashtag Bristol Runners. And up on my feed were coming people that lived in my local community. There are a couple of really great, there's lots of great groups on Instagram, but two that I know of are Run Mummy Run, which is a really good one, and Fit, I think it's Fit Mums, again I did write it down, Fit Mums, which is a really good one, and then things like following the running channel, Anna Harding, who runs the running channel, lots of YouTube videos. She's the most amazing woman, so authentic, just says it as it is. She's run the Great North Run with a GoPro telling you what it's like. She's just fantastic. And then you've got things like the National Running Show, so pick up any of those sorts of people on social media, it will be great. Local running shops will probably have information of running groups that you might be able to find. When I moved back to the UK, I just Googled the area I was living in to see if there were any local running groups around. So there is so many places that you can find, but I think the apps are a really good place to start especially if you're a little bit nervous, if you want to sort of get yourself up to a certain level before you perhaps engage in a running group. I personally am not a member of any kind of athletics club or running club. Probably a confidence thing. Going along finding all these 20, 30-year-old really fit people. But I think the general feeling of that is changing. As I said, I did have a word earlier with a couple of my older running friends, and they said, oh, well, that's why this group was set up, because people were a little bit put off by going to what they call an athletics club and being, doing all this interval training, when really they want to go for maybe a run for half an hour, and it's a bit of a social as well as the running and the physical side of things. But I think Google's a great place to start. Google and Instagram are probably great places to start.
Yeah, no, really, really good. One of the things, so I've got 2 questions to finish on. I didn't tell you about these questions either, because I do like to give my guests a little bit. I don't like to side swipe them too much, but there are 2 things I'm going to ask. But before I ask those 2 questions, I want to kind of clarify. So I wanted you to come on the Inside the Orange podcast. So the podcast is about understanding people. What I think's absolutely amazing about you is that everything you say is real. You know, there's not a lot I have to kind of dig in and go, well, what were you thinking about here? What, like you said, you've talked openly about the menopause, you talk openly about mental fitness, mental health, everything like that. It's really important. But what I wanted you to do more than anything, when I thought about having you on the podcast, was inspiring other people. I want to show you, because you inspire me. You are somebody that I want to kind of get people to understand, because your story is so inspiring. It's something that happened later in life. You're happy to admit all of this stuff, but it might just help that one person that is struggling with mental health at the moment, is struggling maybe with the menopause, is thinking, and again, not related, but I'm a bit overweight, maybe I need to go and start doing a bit of running or whatever. You are hearing it from someone that was later into it is so good, because we all see these athletes and go, I can't be Usain Bolt. No, you can't, mate, but you can be the first John Smith. And I just wanted to say that. Absolutely, if that's fair. Yeah. So, the question I wanted to ask, so what's the plan for the next 5 years for you?
Okay, so I'm just going to talk from a running perspective.
Okay.
Here, yeah.
However you want.
Okay. So from a running perspective, well, firstly, it has to be continue to enjoy it, because the minute I stop enjoying it is the minute then I have to sort of reassess where I'm going. But my big aspiration for Sally Brider / older runners / mums / women full stop is I want to and I will achieve the 6-star finishers medal from running all 6 of the World Marathon Majors. That's my biggie. I absolutely want to do it, just to show people that we can do it. So that you can't achieve that in 5 minutes, unfortunately. If all goes according to plan, I'll have 4 by the end of this year, and that will just leave me Tokyo and Boston. And for those of you who know anything about running, Boston is the really hard one to get into, because you have to run something called a BQ, which is a Boston qualifier.
Oh, wow.
To even get in. They do have charity places, and they have a few through international tour companies, but generally you have to run a time, and it's tough. And I'm not there at the moment, and I think, having just looked at the times again this week, I will probably, I think I could achieve it at a push. I could achieve it before I'm 60, but I think the time that's on the BQ for age 60 is achievable. So I'm 58 this year, so that will take me up to 60s and then I've also got to do it in a year when there are enough places for everybody. So that's the big one. Is the World Marathon Major. Without sounding cheesy, it's really to keep inspiring people to think that you can do it, because as you've said, to inspire one person, and I've got loads of lovely people who write to me to say, oh, I saw that post or watched that or heard you talk there, and that made me want to do it, and that makes me feel really great. really, really amazing is that you can just change one person's journey. Sorry, I hate the word journey, and they can then in turn go and do it to somebody else. Because, you know, if you just told the girl who ran her first 10K that I was going to have one world marathon medal, I would never, ever have believed you. So from a running perspective, the other thing, actually, I'm glad you said about it, Rich, and we've said about life in general, is I think at the moment, and I understand this, is this big emphasis on gratitude and mindfulness and all of that kind of stuff. Personally, I'm rubbish at things like mindfulness. I live with a husband, he's very good, and I'm not, because my brain is really, really busy, and I'm not very good at switching off. But I came across a book yesterday, which last week, which I've not read very much of yet, but it's rather than trying to like pressurize ourselves to feel grateful and accept all the positivity in life, it's a little bit more real for me. It's about saying, no, there are all these other range of emotions out there that range from, you know, loss and pain and envy and uncertainty and all these what we call like negative ones. But it's just encouraging us to accept all of those and say, well, it's okay to say today I'm feeling angry or because of this reason, and not just try and put that away and go, no, I have to be grateful and positive all the time. So it's more of an acceptance of the whole range of emotions that we all have, and I think it's a lot more realistic for people who are having a difficult time, especially at the moment, and thinking this whole gratitude thing is just really not on my radar. I've got far too much going on. So that, I think, is a big thing for me. I think it's, again, without sounding cheesy, it's just to be a good person, and obviously the number one person in my life who I want to inspire is my daughter. She thinks I'm a cool mum. Her friends actually think I'm a cool mum, so that's...
Yeah, you've won!
That one of her friends only recently thought I was 30, so I was really chuffed with that one. So, yeah, inspiring my daughter to do good things, be kind. I mean, I know today is that we're filming. This is the anniversary of Caroline Flack's suicide, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of the messages that we talked about this time last year have, for whatever reason, you know, disappeared, and people do need a reminder that being kind is the most important thing for me, definitely.
And that's so real. I mean, you know, the work, you know, what you've just explained there, self-awareness. You know, it's okay to not be okay, but I suppose what we want to make sure we're doing is that if you are feeling that way, that you can reach out for people. I mean, you know, I talk about it more in this season, but I've struggled with mental health myself, and one of the reasons I struggled with mental health was I didn't understand myself, and when I started to understand myself, my mental health improved. And, you know, it's okay to not be okay. So people like Sally, if someone is having a bit of a bad day and wants to go for a run, message Sally and ask for, you know, what do you want to do on a run today? If you want to message me, Rich, I'm feeling like this. That is so important. We are here to help you. We're not here I can't wave a magic wand in anyone's way, and I know Sally can't, but it's okay to not be okay. But reach out. There are people out here who do want to help you, and honestly, Sally, that's a fantastic message. I did have one other question, and again, sorry, just about the inspiring the children. Again, it's what the Inside the Orange was built upon. You know, my son, I've got two boys, and I want them to go into work and be understood. That's why I do it. I want them to, what they love in life, I want them to do. So that's why I want to inspire them. You know, I wanted to help people. That's why I started a podcast. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to understand how people felt. That's why I'm doing it. As long as they go in their lives and understand who they're talking to, maybe they need to understand more than just, oh, he's a bit quirky, he's a bit strange, a bit weird. No, I don't want that. You know, you understand what drives these people. You know, even as a spectator, even as the son of someone who does that, understand people. So inspiring your kids, honestly, 100%. The last question I want to ask, I want to take you back 20 years. You've got the chance now. You ignore me in this other picture, just here. You're talking to you 20 years ago. What are you going to tell her? So, you didn't know these, did you? These are the ones I do.
I think it would be, and we've touched on this already, is not to be afraid of trying something. And, you know, I hate the word because I think we all learn from it, but not to be afraid of failing. We only improve by failing at things, don't we?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, that you have to learn. I mean, there's lots of things I wish I'd done in my life. I always wanted to learn to play the piano, and I've never done it. And I think probably too late now. But I wish I'd started on something like running earlier. Probably, I think I'd sum it all up really with the not being afraid. It goes across the whole range of things, from trying something new. The big thing, talking, is what you've just said, is so massive. I mean, something I think people might relate to this is that I wrote about this fairly recently, is just because your outer shell changes and gets older, take it from me, the person inside is still exactly the same. And I learned this about 20 odd years ago, actually, from my husband's grandmother, who laughed at something on TV, which I thought was really quite rude. And she laughed in a way that showed me that she knew exactly what the comedian was talking about. And I felt quite ashamed of myself, thinking that just because she was sitting in this 80 whatever she was body, that her brain somehow was not at the same level as me, that she didn't understand that kind of stuff. And of course she did, and she did say we'd had a chat about it, and she said, I still feel like I'm in my 20s, and I'm sitting here now at this time of my life still feeling like I'm in my 20s or my 30s. And sometimes older people will tell you look in the mirror sometimes and you think, God, how did I get old? I feel like I'm 25 and I want to tackle all this kind of stuff. So, and I think it's the talking about stuff is a big thing. I lost my mum when I was a teenager, never talked about it. It was like in a box, never. My mum died in 1980, and the first time I ever really talked about it was after Diana was killed in 1997. Pandora's box opened a little bit, and some of those expressions, I think it was quite common for a lot of people, and it is just that not fear of being able to talk and tell people how you're feeling about all the things you talked about there, Rich, around mental health. It's sum it up by not being afraid, because you can absolutely guarantee there's at least one, there's probably hundreds or thousands of people that are feeling the same way that you are, and having somebody to talk to about it. I think that's, I wish I'd got into running when I was in my 20s, not my 50s.
No, it's, again, absolutely amazing. I'm just going to say, 100% thank you for, again, you came into my life via Godwin. Again, the most amazing, inspiring person in my life, introduces me to someone else. So this is just how well it breeds in this day and age. People who inspire you will show you other people who inspire you. And, so I want to say, a massive thank you for coming to do this today. And I suppose one more cheeky question: when you've got the big six, are you going to come back on the podcast and talk about it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's call it that. Let's do it that then. Sally, again, you can follow Sally at Sally Brider on Instagram. Again, reach out to her. She's absolutely amazing, and she loves everything people do and inspires by running. And again, I can't say it thank enough. So, Sally, thanks for doing this today, and have a great day.
Thanks so much, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to this episode. If this podcast is something you enjoy, then please subscribe to the podcasts and make sure you like and share so more people can hear our message. Remember, if you have any questions for me or my guests, you can get in touch via our website, insidetheorange.co.uk, on Twitter @OrangeWatts, on Instagram @InsideTheOrange, or on Facebook on the Inside the Orange podcast. And finally, there's the email of insidethisorange@gmail.com. All these links will be available in the description. Thanks for listening, goodbye and take care.